Hey everyone, in this video I'll be breaking down to you exactly how you can get started working with micro-influencers completely free using effective product gifting strategies. I'll be breaking down to you exactly how you can generate consistent revenue for your e-commerce business using these influencers by getting them to consistently post your product on their stories or feed. And I'll also share with you 3 different strategies that you can actually deploy in order to start working with these influencers for completely free. So that being said guys, let's go ahead and jump to my computer. Okay everyone, so how can you actually start working with influencers for zero through effective product gifting? Well, first of all, let's start off with the basics. So what is product gifting? Essentially, product gifting is when we give micro-influencers free products in exchange for mentions on their stories or their feeds. The goal here is just to reach a large group of people without having to pay for advertising. Usually influencers might charge you hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of dollars to post on their stories or their feeds. Essentially, we'll be selling our products to micro-influencers or influencers in general and get them to post our products for completely free so that we capture all that media value without having to pay for advertising in the first place. And essentially at scale, the goal here is just to get thousands of pieces of content getting created for you every single month without even having to worry about paid ads at all, if that is your goal. And I personally know a store that's doing 6 figures a month just by using product gifting. The store simply sends out thousands of packages every single month to loads of different influencers. They post to the store for completely free, and that store generates over 6 figures a month in revenue just through that strategy. So at scale, this strategy can be absolutely powerful, but there are a few things you do need to keep in consideration before you actually start deploying it. So what are the ideal products you can actually start gifting to influencers? Now there are some recommendations I have just from what I personally seen work before, and if your products do fit these categories, then product gifting will probably work out much more effectively for you because your products are much more likely to actually be posted on someone's feed as well as being posted multiple times on someone's feed because the influencer generally likes the content. But one of the first criteria I look for in products to make sure that they are good for product gifting in the first place is just making sure that you can personalize them. And this can range from actually personalizing the influencer's name onto the product, or maybe a custom photo. Something with some sort of product that allows customization will probably do much better in terms of getting higher response rates as well as higher posting conversion rates from influencers, just because they feel much more of a connection to the product and they can tell that you put more time and effort into selling that product to them. Now obviously the number of products that are personalizable are quite limited, so you can do other things such as creating personalized notes inside of a product that's addressed directly to the influencer, and the influencer can obviously tell that you took much more time than the majority of brands have reached out to them to send them the product. So they are slightly more likely to post it, but that's not necessarily the case. Personalized gifts are definitely what you want to look for just because they help you stand out a little bit more from all the other brands messaging this influencer. But another thing you can do just to go the extra mile is make something like a personalized video card. But essentially you can buy cards and make a custom video and put them inside of the package that you send to the influencer, and you can say their name just so that the video is directly addressed to them. And as long as the influencer can tell that you genuinely spent loads of time and effort into sending them this gift, then they're more likely to post for you, of course. But that is the first thing. Again, your product doesn't have to be personalized, but it is just one thing that I've noticed works much more better when you're working with influencers. If your product is somehow personalized, you'll get higher response rates and higher post rates. But the second thing, and I think this is more important than the first thing, is that making sure that the product can organically fit into a post. You want to only be selling Instagrammable products. Whenever the influencer posts your product, it shouldn't be obvious that the post is an ad. You don't want your ads to come off as ads. You want them to come across as genuine content so that when people come across them, they won't instantly click away or scroll down because they see it's an ad they want to skip past. They want to look at it as if it's actual content, like that. The product itself should blend into the influencer's feed. And when that happens, essentially you can get the influencer posting for you multiple times instead of for them just posting one time. And just to give you a good example of this, if you think about products like clothing or jewelry, these products are very Instagrammable. You don't have to force people to watch or look at these products. When you promote clothing and jewelry, they can disguise themselves as normal content, but the influencer at the same time can just tag your brand in the caption or the image itself. And essentially, as soon as you have a product that's Instagrammable and people actually want to post without getting their audience realizing that this is an ad, and without annoying their audience with multiple ads, essentially you can get the influencer to post for you multiple times, even without you asking, because they genuinely like the product. And it fits in perfectly with their feeds, so they don't need to even push it really aggressively. They will start posting for you multiple times, and you can benefit from that big time because not only are you getting loads of unique content that you can repurpose, but also you're getting loads of free traction, loads of tags. And over time, this obviously all builds up, so you can have dozens or hundreds or thousands of influencers posting multiple times for you, tagging your brand, and it really just creates a bandwagon effect, let's say. So products that organically fit into a feed are an absolute goldmine. But the first thing I would say is that making sure that the products that you do gift to influencers are low cost products. And essentially the reason I say this is because when you have a low cost product, something that costs let's say $5 to gift out to someone, it's much better selling a high volume of low cost products to hundreds of different influencers than selling let's say $20, $50 products to 50 influencers. Even though the cost for those two are the same, you would much rather send $200, $5 products to influencers just because let's say half of those 200 influencers don't end up posting for you. You still have 100 influencers posting for you, you have 100 unique pieces of content, and chances are let's say 10 of them hit the explore page, they bang, they go very viral, then you can of course make a good amount of sales from that, and it probably covers up all the other products that you did send out. But the issue with sending $20, $50 products out is as soon as a couple of them don't post, you might already be quite a bit into the red because the products are so expensive, and if some of them don't post, which is likely the case with influencers because not everyone is going to 100% post for you if you send them a gift, even if it's expensive, there's a chance loads of people won't post and you'll end up just spending a lot of money on product costs and not getting much content out of it. So you're much more better off selling a high volume of lower price products rather than a low volume of high price products. And again, this isn't to say that if you do have a higher price product that it's not possible to send them out, because it certainly can work. It's just that if you're just starting off and you're doing it for the first time, there's a chance that because you're not as experienced, you won't be getting as many influencers to actually follow through and end up posting for you, and that will affect your numbers negatively at the end of the day. So I would really recommend if you're just starting off, find a lower price product that you can go ahead and send out to influencers and send out a large volume of them. And by the way, when I say $5, I mean the cost of goods sold is $5, so your actual purchase price for the product, not your sell price. So let's say your e-commerce brand mostly sells high ticket products, so products that are over $50 or $100. I still wouldn't recommend sending out those high price products to influencers, even though those might be your primary SKUs, your primary products. It's better for you to just go ahead and send a low price product, maybe a slight variation or just a cheaper version of your main product to influencers, because it will cost much less for you and you can get much more content because you send it to way more people by spending the same amount of money on shipping products out. And you can essentially bring awareness to your brand, you can get followers through these smaller products, and later you can go ahead and look at upselling your main product to the audience that you did build up through gifting your cheaper, lower cost products. Okay, so let's actually move into the fun stuff now. Strategies for gifting influencers. What are the 3 different strategies you can use? First strategy would be high volume and low follower count. Essentially what we want to do here is we want to find micro influencers with under 50,000 followers, mostly under 20k because that's where you get really high response rates, but under 50k you'll generally see loads of people will accept these type of deals. And essentially you want to message anyone and anywhere, as long as they're within your target demographic. Let's say you're a male brand, you're selling out to males 18 plus. As long as the influencers are male 18 plus, you want to go ahead and send them a DM asking them if they want your products for completely free. And obviously convince them to post you on their stories or feed posts when they do receive your products. Personally, we always recommend influencers to post on their stories just because we see story posts are much more effective than feed posts, especially nowadays with the swipe up links that anyone can add onto their stories, so there's no follower count limitation. It used to be 10,000 followers, but now anyone can add a link to their stories. So you can ask your influencers to just post your product on their story. Obviously, you can do feed posts as well. It's good to have a mix of both. Feed posts last longer because they're always going to remain in the feed. So you have that content that forever stays on Instagram. So both work for sure, but we personally do stories more than we do feed posts with influencers. And essentially the strategy for finding these influencers, all you really need to do is go ahead and open Instagram and go to your explore page. Ideally you want to be on your brand's Instagram page, because if your brand is following loads of influencers, then most likely your explore page will also be filled with loads of different influencers as well. So it'll be really easy to find loads of high quality influencers on your explore page. But essentially you just want to scroll down here until you find a couple of accounts that kind of match your target audience, and then you go ahead and click on their profiles and you can find a bunch of micro influencers by doing this. Let me go ahead and show you a few examples. Okay, so it took a few minutes, but we got an example here. So Kaylee over here, just 40,000 followers. It's a bit on the higher end, but still that's, we can send her a DM asking if she does want to work with us. But essentially all you want to go ahead and do is go ahead and drop her a follow and then send her a message. I'll go ahead and give you guys the script in a couple of minutes. And you would ask her essentially if she wanted to work with you for completely free, if she could get your free product. And you do want to position yourself in a way that your brand looks more legit, that you're a big brand, that you work with loads of influencers, so that she's actually more likely to go ahead and work with you. A good thing you can do is just buy a bunch of followers on your Instagram account. I made a video on that before, but you can use SMM panels. There's loads of SMM panels out there that you can go ahead and just buy 50,000, maybe 20,000 followers for your Instagram account, so it looks much more reputable. The best way to do this is just to keep everything inside of the DMs, because if you start emailing loads of micro-influencers, chances are that it's going to be a lot of back and forth, whereas Instagram, you can get deals sorted out in a couple of minutes if they happen to be online. Emails is going to take days of back and forth before you get anything sorted. So keep everything inside of the DMs. Ideally make multiple profiles as well, because essentially there's DM limits on Instagram. Sometimes it's like 10 an hour, 15 an hour, it really depends. So you want to make maybe 5 different profiles. Make it, your brand name underscore influencers, your brand name underscore promos, and then message the maximum amount of influencers you can every single hour that fit, your follower criteria. And again, the easy way to do this, go to your profile, go to your explore page, and then make sure you follow influencers that are in your target market, because your explore page will keep on giving you more content and more influencers similar to that demographic. So once you find one, you can go ahead and click the suggested button. I'm going to bet you most of these influencers on the suggested are also similar follow counts, and they probably post similar content as well. So once you find one, it's pretty easy to go ahead and find loads. You just need to go ahead and click on suggested, and you can find a bunch of other high quality influencers. Ideally, you want to stick under 20k really, because that's when you get a higher open rate. So this one's 8k, so that's decent. The lower you go, the more likely someone is to actually respond to you and end up working with you. So that's what I would do. And just because they have a low follower count doesn't mean that they won't give you any sales, because personally, we work with influencers with over 10 million followers. We work with influencers with 100,000 followers. And sometimes the people with 100,000 followers can literally outperform the ones with millions and millions of followers, just because their audience is much more loyal and much more engaged. So don't think that because they're small, they don't have influence of their audience and they can't drive purchases, because that's definitely not the case. As long as you structure the promotion the right way, or as long as you get the right people actually, then a lot of the time you can actually drive loads of sales even through these free promotions with these really small influencers. And a quick way to actually check if the influencer is legit, let's say, so you just want to check their comment section, making sure there's actual genuine comments in there. Usually what I look for is just some sort of questions, people asking where'd you get those shoes from, or some sort of genuine questions. You don't want to see emojis. That's the main red flag you want to avoid. So as long as it's not emojis being spammed over here, in this case I can tell it's not emoji spam, and then the audience is probably legit, and you've got a good influence on your hand. A really nice thing that you can also look out for, I made a video about this on how you can vet out influencers, but essentially if an influencer responds to their comments like this influencer is clearly doing, and this was only posted a couple minutes ago, so she's very active. As soon as they respond to comments, you can tell that there's there's a strong relationship, strong affinity between the influencer and the audience. And this influencer it's much more likely to convert and do well on even a free promotion than someone who doesn't respond to their audience at all. So this is a sign of a great influencer. I'd go ahead and just message her, like I said. Message as many people as you can through multiple Instagram accounts and get as many of them as possible. Typically what you can expect is that out of the, let's say 100 that you do message, only 15 or so would reply on emails. If it was DMs, you probably get maybe 30 or 40 replies, depending on how big or small the influencer is. And out of that, people who do reply, you can negotiate a deal with, and you end up sending the product to. From that, let's say you send the product to 100 people, at least 70 of them would end up posting. So obviously there's a sort of a drop off, 30 of them won't post, for various reasons. Maybe they just wanted a free product out of you. But that's kind of expected, that's part of the game, so you need to be able to deal with that. Expect 70% of them to post. If you did structure everything right, you've explained to them exactly. And after that 70%, some of them will continuously post you multiple times, even without you asking for them, as long as your product is Instagrammable. Like I said before, you want your product to seamlessly integrate in someone's feed. So clothing, seamlessly integrated, it doesn't look like an ad. Jewelry, it seamlessly integrates, it doesn't look like an ad. The influencers kind of hate spamming their audience with ads, of course, so if your product doesn't look like an ad, they can kind of disguise it in there and just tag you in the caption or a post of a feed post, then chances are you'll be posted many more times, especially if the influencer really likes your product. If you're selling jewelry and the influencer really likes your jewelry product, there's no doubt they'll keep on wearing it on their post because they genuinely like it, and they'll most likely tag you a couple of times, or maybe every single time they wear it. So That's another great reason that you need to have a good product if you do want to effectively do product gifting the right way. But in terms of what sort of ROI you can actually expect from these influencer promotions, it really varies, because an influencer decides to post you but not really push you properly. Maybe they only tag you instead of actually making a video and mentioning your brand. And obviously it will convert less. So it really depends on how they do mention you. You can actually message them beforehand explaining exactly how they would be promoting you. So you can say to them specifically, we want a story post, should be at least 15 seconds long, and you should mention our brand profile. You should add a clickable link. You can do that beforehand, or you can just let the influencer do whatever they want. If they want to post a feed post, they can. If they want to post in the story, they can. It's up to you. So the ROI really depends, but chances are if you send out a high volume of packages, like I said before, and let's say even one of the posts that the influencers do make, let's say if you do 100 posts, even if one of them does really well, hits the explore page, it gets a lot of reach, then you're just getting hundreds of dollars, maybe even thousands of dollars in media value for completely free, and it could generate you a crazy amount of sales. So never underestimate how effective these influencer promotions can be. And again, especially when you do it at scale, you're doing loads of these, because I wouldn't really recommend doing 5 or 10, because chances are, sure, you might get a couple of sales, but it's going to be a long time. It's going to be a really low volume. You want to do hundreds of packages in one go. Like, you just want to spam, but you want to message as many influencers as possible and send out as many packages as possible, as quickly as possible, so you can actually see some real good numbers coming out of this. Obviously, if you're just testing, you want to start small, that's completely fine. But if you really want to see this work effectively at a high scale, you want to send out thousands and thousands of packages, then you have to be operating that level. And obviously, you can get VAs to handle the DMs, etc. But this could be really, really ludicrous on a high scale. But okay guys, let's go ahead and move on to strategy number 2. Strategy number 2 is high volume and high follower count. So this is actually a bit different, or quite a bit different to strategy number 1. Essentially, this could be a big hit or miss, let's say. So I really recommend only doing personalized products, because big influencers get probably hundreds of PR boxes every week. So chances are if you send them a non-personalized product or something that's not unique in some way that stands out, they'll just see your package and they'll pass it by. They might not even open it. So I wouldn't recommend sending non-personalized or non-unique products in some sort of way to these big influencers. But essentially what we're doing here is we find huge influencers, 1 million followers, 5 million followers, 10 million followers. And these are influencers who are active in terms of they regularly post content, post products that they get. So loads of influencers post PR unboxing videos on YouTube. You can just type that into YouTube. You'll find loads of influencers making unboxing videos. And these influencers are great because they can promote your product to hundreds of thousands, millions of people for completely free. You just need to get your product in front of those eyeballs. You want your product to look unique and to look like it should be worthy to be shared, and they'll end up sharing it. So the influencers should genuinely like your product, and they do end up sharing it. So for us, the reason I say personalized products is because we had a personalized product that did great with these big influencers that were posting us for completely free, because we would surprise them. We would send products that are personalized specifically for them to their PO boxes. And usually you can find their PO boxes or their addresses by just going to their YouTube channel, and you can find their address there sometimes, maybe in video descriptions. Have a bit of a look, even search online, you can find loads of PO boxes. And essentially influencers really like the personalized products that we were sending them, and people with 3 million followers were posting us for completely free and generating thousands of dollars in sales, just because again they genuinely like the product and it was cool, it was unique to them. And they don't get that every single day. So you want to stand out from most of the other brands. They have thousands, hundreds of thousands of boxes coming their way. So if you don't stand out, then you're basically wasting money. There's no point in doing it. So personalized product or being unique in some way, you can send it to really high follower count influencers. Don't expect a high percentage of these people to post. If you send out 100 packages, maybe one would post, but that one that does post, you might have captured $10,000, $20,000 in media value for completely free, and you have to expect that to pay back for all the other packages that you did send out that didn't see an immediate ROI. So again, it is hit or miss, because you can send out a bunch of packages and no one ends up posting. It's very much possible. But chances are if your product is really great, really cool, unique in some way, then you will get a couple posting for you, and that just covers up all your losses in terms of the cost of sending products out to the 100 that you did send out, and obviously put you into profit, hopefully at least. Okay guys, so just to give you an example here, you can go ahead and just type in PR boxes into YouTube. You can find a bunch of different channels. Obviously you want to filter this by your specific niche, whatever niche you're in. You can see there's a bunch of different channels that do this. go ahead and just click on one of the channels. You can scroll down, you can see the PO box for the influencer here. And just to make clear, if I wasn't clear before, you're not going to message these people beforehand. You're just going to send them products completely cold and just hope that they will post you. So unlike strategy number 1, where you would message people beforehand, negotiate with them, making sure that they would give you their address and then give them the post. This one, you're not actually telling them beforehand you're going to send them a product, because obviously they're too big, they probably won't reply to you. You just want to go ahead and send them the product and hope they will post you. So you would go ahead and send hundreds of these influencers products and just hope 1 or 2 of them will post, and that's where you make your money. These also don't have to be YouTube influencers. They can be Instagram, Snapchat, whatever platform you do want to work on. But a good way to find these people really quickly, just going to YouTube, and you can find loads of high quality people by scrolling through YouTube, which is how we usually do it. Okay, and strategy number 3, I'm going to go ahead and call this location-based swarm. Now, this isn't the strategy I've personally deployed before, but it is super effective. Loads of big brands, High Smell, Sand and Sky, loads of big brands have gone ahead and deployed this strategy. Essentially, all we're doing here is, instead of sending products to everyone and anyone like we did in strategy number 1, we're going to target people specifically by zip codes or cities and send to influencers only within that zip code or city. Essentially, the effect that we're trying to get going here is, if someone living in that city sees their best friend and their favorite influencer and multiple people within their city promoting the exact same product at around a similar time, then they're much more likely to go ahead and convert and purchase that product than if they were to just see one big influencer mentioning it. So we really want to send this product out to loads and loads of really popular people within that specific area. And then, as long as the viewer within that area sees the product multiple times, they're going to be much more convinced and much more likely to purchase from you. So really what we're going to be doing is going after the really small micro influencers. Now, these people don't even need to be influencers. They could just be the most popular person in a friend group. They only need to have maybe 1,000, 2,000 followers. But go ahead and send products to just thousands of people within a specific zip code or city. I would say a state is way too big, because you really want to make sure that a single person sees the ad from multiple people that they follow. So if you go statewide, you have to send tens of thousands of packages. If you go city or go really specific zip codes, then you only need to send a couple hundred packages in order to reach the majority of people living within that geographic. And something that you'll notice when you work with these micro influencers is that they'll tend to have much more higher and stronger conversion rates than these bigger influencers, because these people are not necessarily influencers themselves. They might not have posted products in their past, so when they are promoting something for the first time, the people following them, well, most likely just really close friends or sort of distant friends, are going to believe them and going to be much more likely to purchase than if a bigger influencer was to post. So you're probably going to see much better results when you work with 10 influencers who have 2,000 followers than one influencer who has 20,000 followers, even though both can be super effective, of course. So really what you want to do is go to the Explore page, or just go to the search bar on Instagram and look for or type in a specific city. So if you're in the UK, maybe you want to target just Manchester or just London. Type in that city into Instagram, and essentially you'll find a bunch of posts tagging that specific, tagged in that specific area. And then you want to go ahead and sort all the influencers, or the big influencers or the smaller influencers in that area, and just message as many of them as you can. So in order for this to work, you need to do at least 500 influencers within a specific city. Depending on how big the city is, of course, it really ranges. But message everyone under 5,000 followers, I would say, within that specific city. See how many people you can get, and you just want to send hundreds and hundreds of packages to many people in that city and get them to post at a similar time. Essentially, when they post at a similar time, you can only imagine, let's say someone did this strategy in your city, you go ahead and check Instagram one day and you see multiple of your friends posting the exact same product. Chances are you're going to at least check out the website and you might even purchase. So that's really what you want to do here. Focus on one specific city, only send to influencers in that specific city. They don't need to be massive. It's better if they're smaller influencers, because they'll have higher conversion rates. Send as many as you can, and you can't be half in, half out with this strategy. You really have to go fully 100% in. For example, when High Smell deployed this, they did it in the West Coast area. I believe that's where they're based. And they sent the products out to hundreds of influencers. Sand and Sky is another skincare brand. I think they did 900 influencers every single week inside of that area in Australia that they were in. So you really want to be specific to the zip code that you target. Again, it's very straightforward. All you need to do is just find influencers by typing in that city location or that zip code into Instagram, and you'll find loads of people in that area. But okay, so those are the three main strategies. All three of them work, so it really depends on what you want to use. We mostly use strategy number one more than we used the other two. We haven't deployed three actually at all. But all three of them do work, so feel free to test, see what works for you. But one really important thing that we need to address here is how can we actually convince influencers to go ahead and work with you in the first place? Essentially what we do is we offer influencers some sort of incentive to continuously post their products. Like I said earlier, if you get an influencer that only posts for you one time, then it's kind of like a waste because you have to spend $5 or $10 to ship out your product. They might have generated you a couple of sales, but that's the end of the relationship, and that was a pretty pointless relationship. If you get the influencer to post for you multiple times, maybe even at least one time every single month, but that could be huge because you have consistent revenue, which is the whole goal here. Consistent revenue being generated from this influencer for a long period of time, hopefully. Essentially, what you can do is you can incentivize them by giving them free products every single month. So very simply, what we do is we tell influencers, hey, if you meet this minimum, and our minimum is 3 story posts, if you post on your stories 3 times every single month, and then we can send you a new product next month. And depending on what store you run, maybe you don't have too many products, so that doesn't make sense. If you give them some sort of incentive, let's say if you're running a clothing store, you send them a fresh pair of clothes every single month. Then sure, why wouldn't the influencer post that when they do get a new pair of clothes? They would do that anyway if they were wearing normal clothes. So if you incentivize them to continuously post, you're still making money because they're generating you sales, as well as you're kind of maintaining their relationship. So you have good relationships with loads of influencers, so you're turning into more of a brand over here. Then there you go, you're starting generating consistent revenue from influencers. But in terms of actually convincing influencers to initially work with you, not on an ongoing basis, but just the first time you reach out to them, one thing we always do is we always send a nice Canva graphic, basically. So instead of sending you super long DMs, really, so that like 10 lines long, they take a lot of time to read. When an influencer opens it, they see a long message, they might just skip by. That's what I do sometimes, even if there's a long message. So what you can do is just make a nice Canva graphic and just get someone on Fiverr to make it for you. You can go ahead and put your message inside the graphic itself, so it looks a bit nice. Maybe you can have some pictures of other influencers that you work with. Just make it look nice, and essentially people are more likely to read that than super long, boring DMs. So initial outreach, really recommend just sending a nice picture, a nice graphic. I would also make sure your website is clean, because when the influencer is visiting your website, obviously they'll visit your profile first. That's why I said to buy 10, 20, 30,000 followers, just to look a bit legit. And then make sure your website is pretty clean. No standard Shopify themes, get something a bit more custom. Not required, but it's better if your website is not like the standard debut theme. And essentially, as long as you can convince influencers that your product is great, which it should be, because if it's not, then influencers obviously won't post your product. As long as you convince them it's great, that you're legit, that there's some incentive in it for them, which is that they consistently get more products every single month, then loads of them will happily work with you. So that's personally what we do. I would always treat your influencers really great. Anytime it's like a special event in the year, so if it's Christmas, we message them Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, New Year's, Happy Thanksgiving, whatever it might be, any sort of event, go ahead and message your influencers. Keep that relationship with them, even for the ones that don't end up working with you, because eventually they might even, someday they might turn around and say, hey, I do want to work with you. That's happened with us loads of times. We just kept on following up with influencers, and that's really important. You always want to follow up with influencers, even if they say no. You don't want to annoy them, of course, but something like a Merry Christmas or a Happy New Year is completely harmless. Some of them will appreciate it and will end up working with you in the first eventually. So you want to go ahead and treat your influencers like gold, because they are kind of like the lifeline of your business. And as long as you do that, even the ones that rejected you at one point, they might turn around and want to work with you. So that's just a nice hint there. But what are some other best practices? I would also recommend make sure you reply to your DMs ASAP. Again, I would handle everything through the DMs, especially with micro-influencers, because as soon as you get to emails, something that would take 2 hours of discussions on DMs will take 2 days or a few days on emails. So always stick to DMs, have multiple accounts, so that as soon as you run into limits, you can kind of switch through the different accounts, you or VA, I mean. But respond to DMs ASAP, because as soon as the influencer is online, they will respond to you, and you happen to see that response come through. You want to respond to them ASAP. They're online, you can set up the deal at that exact moment. You don't want to spend hours responding to them. I would always have a VA or someone always online on Instagram, so they can just work through DMs as soon as they come in. Influencers appreciate that, because if you're not wasting their time, you show your eagerness by responding to them instantly. Then you can get deals set up much faster, and obviously that that lets you do a higher volume of deals. And also the influencer is more likely to post for you because they can tell that you genuinely want to build a relationship with them, you're eager to get a deal done, and it's just positive signs when you respond to DMs ASAP. Also, I would recommend following up with influencers, like I said before. So let's say you've sent a message to an influencer who doesn't even respond, they don't even see the message, which will happen like 70% of the time. Send another script, another graphic, let's say, to the influencer. Use an emoji at the beginning so it kind of pops out on their preview text. There's a few different tactics you can use, but change up your scripts a little bit, and eventually you'll get them to respond, hopefully. And as I said a minute ago, you always want to make sure you maintain a great relationship with the influencer. Anytime we see some sort of event, let's say someone just gave birth, we go ahead and message them congratulations. Something genuine, something unique to them, so it's not like a standard thing. We want to like actually genuinely build a relationship with them. It's like the law of reciprocity. When you treat someone well, or they see you're doing some sort of favor for them or something nice for them, they're more likely to treat you well and they're more likely to post your product or do whatever. So I would always recommend keeping a nice relationship with influencers. So a question I get quite a lot is, what about contracts? Should I send contracts to these influencers that I work with? What do I personally do? So my view on contracts is that they slow things down big time, especially when it's with micro influencers, people who, you're doing hundreds of these deals. If you send contracts to them every single time you want them to post or you set up a deal, it's going to take hours for them to fill that out, and it's going to be extra work that's not necessary. Nowadays, we already sign contracts with the bigger paid influencers that we do. When it's like a free influencer, we're just sending their product for completely free. We do notice that when we do actually send contracts, people tend to post more. Like the posting rate goes from 70% when with no contracts to like 80-85% with contracts. That might be obviously because people are kind of scared that we're going to do something legally if they don't follow the contract. So obviously there is some sort of advantage. You'll get a slightly higher posting rate, but in general, like the extra hours that it adds into the process, just like finalizing the deal, as well as the extra back and forth, it's kind of pointless. So I wouldn't recommend doing contracts if you're doing free influencers, micro influencers gifting at a high scale, because it just takes a lot of time. And I don't think the extra 10% that you would get with signing contracts is worthwhile in the long run. Also, those people that are only posting because the contract says so and they don't necessarily like your product are likely to make lower quality content because they're not genuinely liking the brand and the product, and they probably won't even post next month as well. So that's why we don't do contracts. We only do it with paid deals. But again, there are benefits to it. If you do want to do contracts, so we always use PandaDoc. You can go ahead and make a nice template, and you just need to change up a few different things in the contract every single time you send it out, and the influencer can fill it in basically a minute. So PandaDoc is very nice. Another question I get quite a lot is, can you actually repurpose content that influencers create and post it on, like run it as a Facebook ad or a TikTok ad or whatever? Answer is it really depends. So loads of the times, paid influencers, at least you have to pay them extra for media usage rights because they won't want their picture being used as an ad if you don't pay them beforehand. So loads of times the answer is no. If it's a small influencer, they might not even care. Like they might be happy to get the opportunity to be an ad for your brand. So you have to ask them beforehand. Of course, you can also add it into the contract, state it as one of the deals, terms of the deal itself, that the content can be repurposed. That's completely up to you, but you have to ask beforehand. Personally, whenever we use like UGC content, we never use a big influencer on that content because it doesn't make sense paying someone thousands of dollars for content and then using it as an ad when most people watching the ad don't know who the person is in the first place. So unless it's a huge influencer, like I don't know, like a Kylie Jenner or something, and you pay them millions for usage rights, then that would make sense. But if it's like someone with 100,000 followers, there's no point in paying them to use their video in ads because no one would know them in the grand scheme of things anyway. So always use UGC content from really small influencers, just small content creators, even a few thousand followers. Just whoever makes the best content, really. It doesn't matter about their follower count if you want to use it as ads. So that's what we usually do. But that's basically it for this video. That's how we would work with micro influencers and get them to consistently post for us by sending them, incentivizing them by giving them multiple products every single month and keeping them posting for us for a long period of time. Again, all three strategies work. I'd recommend you test them out yourself, see what works for your brand. And again, if you have a higher ticket product, this doesn't necessarily mean the strategy won't work for you, but I would really recommend you find like a lower priced product or some sort of downsell that you don't usually promote. Send that out to influencers and then get people into your funnel, and then you can upsell people onto your main product later if you do have a higher ticket product. So guys, I hope you did find that video helpful. If you do have any questions, go ahead and DM me on Instagram. I put my handle on the screen there, _Philip19, or you can drop them down in the comment section. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. If you do like the video, make sure you drop a like down below. Also subscribe to the channel. I post a bunch of marketing related videos like this I've learned over the past 5 years in e-commerce now. I have a bunch of other influencer marketing related videos, so if you go to my channel and click on playlist, go ahead and check out those videos. They're going to be pretty helpful for you if you're doing paid influencer ads as well. But maybe if you're starting with completely no budget and you just want to get started somehow and you can't afford to do paid deals, then definitely this strategy is something you do need to explore. Obviously there is the product cost involved because you do need to send products out to influencers in the first place. But still you could again capture, what you would usually spend $500 in ads for. You can get that influencer posting you for completely free. And obviously that could be absolutely powerful if you're working with hundreds of influencers like this. But thanks again for watching, guys. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't done so already, and I will see you on the next one.
Shopify, we got our niche store selling custom jewelry on Shopify, 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 Shopify. Yeah, you know what it is.